from fury to fear.
Will my position remain?
A range of reactions from federal workers.
None of this is okay.
As the president pushes to scale back the size of government across all agencies, including USAID, which officially terminated Christina Dry just this afternoon.
It's heartbreaking because we know that people are going to be less healthy, less safe through no choice of our own.
What does this mean for your life for the short term here?
Yeah, I think in 10, 15 days, this whole thing has just been turned upside down through no fault of my own. I don't know where my rent is coming from.
Nearly 2.3 million civilians work for the federal government. 80% live outside of the Washington area.
It has been chaos.
After 10 years in the Navy, Andrea Galbraith shifted to a career in the federal government, at least for now.
Nobody wants to work in this type of condition where we're going to be in a psychological warfare for how long?
Other federal workers, not revealing their names because of concern over retribution, described to NBC News fear and panic, an Orwellian nightmare. Shelley told us she has concerns about Elon Musk's role in the changes.
I did not vote for him, and I have a huge amount of issue with the access that he's getting.
Vice President Vance today arguing many Americans did vote for Donald Trump, who promised repeatedly to have Musk root out wasteful spending in our government. And the White House has said a bloated federal bureaucracy has cost American taxpayers hundreds of billions of dollars each year. Dry suggests she understands streamlining, but
there has to be, a mechanism by which that occurs that offers basic decency and basic respect to that worker.
The political getting personal. Hallie Jackson, NBC News, Washington.
Yeah, cry harder. The left-wing media is calling it the Trumpocalypse. They are openly admitting that they have never seen anything like this before. Trump and Elon are ravaging D.C., and federal workers by the tens of thousands are like the proverbial rats fleeing the ship. We're going to find out exactly what's going on and why the days of the deep state and permanent Washington have indeed come to a decisive end. Greetings, everyone. It is Livestream Friday, week number 3 of the greatest presidency of our lifetimes. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to celebrate with you the dawn of the new conservative age that you made possible back on November the 5th. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Again, you did not just change the nation, you changed the world. As always, we got a jam-packed show for you today. I promise to make you feel smarter by the end. That's my job. Our super chats, of course, are now up, so feel free to ask me your questions. You can send in your questions either through the super chats or by becoming a Courageous Conservative Club member. By clicking on the link below, you have access to all kinds of exclusive live Q&As and special content. Either way, it'll be my privilege to answer your questions all throughout this live stream. I want to start by framing just how profound this term Trumpocalypse is for understanding what's happening right before our very eyes. This is how did Hans Gruber put it? The advantages of a classical education. This is the advantages of you having a classical professor here for you as your patron professor. Trumpocalypse, of course, is a play off the term apocalypse. But most people don't actually have any idea the profound significance of this ancient term. Whenever we hear the term apocalypse, we tend to think of, dystopian scenes of nuclear wastelands or, Hollywood desolation, zombies, whatever. But the original meaning of the term is very profound. It comes from the ancient Greek word apokalypsis, which means, and this is key, apokalypsis means to reveal, to make known what was once hidden but is now manifest for all to see. It literally means to expose. It's a kind of unsealing. It makes manifest that which once was kept secret and concealed. That is what the term apocalypse actually means. Now, it tends to be associated with the end times because of the ancient Jewish apocalyptic tradition that involved revelations of what God was going to do in the period of the Roman Empire and bringing that empire down. So the last book of the Bible is what's called the Apocalypse tu Ioannou, the revelation of John. And it was a revelation of how God is bringing down the world order. So the key here is that Trumpocalypse is not merely the bringing down of an evil world order. It is that. At its core, it involves revealing the secrets of that evil order. It's all about bringing to light that which was deliberately kept in darkness. Isn't that the coolest thing in the world? Now, the first victim, obviously, of this Trumpocalypse was, of course, USAID. Now, this is a government department founded several decades back by John F. Kennedy in order to unite several existing foreign assistance organizations under one agency. It's since, of course, as we now know, as has been apocalypsized, as has been revealed, it has become nothing more than a slush fund for far left special interests. Here's Republican Senator Eric Schmidt bringing the receipts of the continued atrocity of USAID.
Can't really defend this kind of stuff. 45 million for diversity and inclusion scholarships in Burma. 3 million for girl-centered climate action in Brazil. 125 million to racialize public health. 288,000 for diverse birdwatcher groups. USAID, which is in the center of the storm right now, and rightfully so, spent $1.5 billion to, quote, advance diversity, equity, inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. 70,000 for the production of a DEI musical in Ireland. 2.5 billion for electric vehicles for Vietnam. 47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. Not Columbia, Missouri, or Columbia, South Carolina, the country of Colombia. 32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. 2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. 6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. This is what they're mad about.
Yeah, mad is an understatement. And the list of the absurdities just goes on and on. $1.3 million for adapting an LGBT inclusive teen pregnancy prevention program for transgender boys. You can't make this up. 10 million in DEI grants for colleges to study transgender lab animals. 2.5 million to study the fertility of transgender mice. We were run by lunatics. Here's White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
Be on our hearts, and the president and this administration are committed to ensuring that these individuals get the funding that they need. And I would just say a strong message to Democrats who are out there pretending to be outraged about the long list of crap that this administration is cutting, federal waste and funding, like $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala, $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt, $20 million on a new Sesame Street show in Iraq, $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. I could go on, and I'm happy to provide this list to every single one of you. Democrats are outraged that the American people want to be, they want their taxpayers going to good uses, not stuff like this. But then they're very quiet about the fact that there are still North Carolinians and people in California who have lost everything. And in the last 4 years, this federal government did nothing to help them. This president will continue to put Americans first. And I think the successes of this week so far speak to that. And it's only Wednesday. So I'll see you guys later this week, and we'll see you this afternoon. Thank you very much.
It's only Wednesday. I love it. Here's how the commentator Justin Murphy put it. I think this is brilliant. Quote, Elon is doing applied political science. He had a hypothesis and then he bet on it. And in being correct, we are learning empirically. The professional managerial class has perfected a system of moral blackmail through which they convert third world suffering into personal wealth and status. I just want to say that again because that's such a perfect sentence. The professional managerial class has perfected a system of moral blackmail through which they convert third world suffering into personal wealth and status. They position themselves as noble humanitarian experts with PhDs who care deeply about things like global poverty to justify their own sinecures extracted from the national purse. These credentialed do-gooders wield the threat of African deaths as a shield against any questioning of their privilege. We've long understood bourgeois professional hypocrisy in theory, but never before have we had such a complete empirical revelation of the exact dollar amounts, networks, and individual names involved across the top of the PMC hierarchy. Professional political scientists are generally feigning horror at Elon right now, but that's because they are members of the permanent political class, PMC, even if they are only minor and distant dependents of this professional managerial class. Absolutely brilliant. In the same vein, intelligence expert Mike Benz has made a very astute observation. If USAID was really saving lives, how come we haven't seen impassioned speeches this week from 40 to 50 prime ministers and presidents around the world that tens of thousands of their citizens are going to die? Why are they so silent? And why do so many seem relieved? Isn't that interesting? Where's the uproar among the international presidents and prime ministers? So many of their citizens are about to get sick and die because of these draconian cuts to USAID that's so essential for saving lives, right? Right, Bill Gates? Where's the international uproar? The only people demonstrably flipping out over this are federal employees inside D.C., inside the swamp, and of course the legacy media that was on the USAID dole. This is the moral blackmail that Justin Murphy is talking about. All of this feigned outrage derives from those who converted third world suffering into personal wealth and status. In other words, evil scum. The apocalypse, the revelations, despite all the attempts at gaslighting by the bought and paid for legacy media, have been a public relations disaster. Virtually every poll out there shows that a supermajority of voters say government spending is the major problem we are facing today as a nation. Everyone, literally every single voter wants waste and fraud eliminated. Obviously so. They want big spending cuts. They want an end to the fraud and waste, and they want tax cuts. They want more of their money back in their pockets and less in the pockets of these moral blackmail artists. Thank you very much. And the results of the last 2.5 weeks, let that hit you. It's only been 2.5 weeks. The results of the last 2.5 weeks speak for themselves. After all the media's attempts at trying to save their precious little slush fund, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has just announced that of the 14,000 jobs total at USAID, just 294 are going to be kept. The rest are being completely eliminated. Rubio is slashing the USAID workforce, which has now officially been consolidated under the U.S. State Department. He is officially slashing the USAID workforce by 99%. 99%. Moreover, the total now of federal employees who have taken up Trump's offer at the buyout has reached over 60,000. This is bigger than Project 2025. Project 2025 is nothing compared. Schedule F is nothing compared to this. 2025 and Schedule F plan on reducing the federal workforce by around that. There were different numbers. Some were 40,000, some were 60,000, some were as high as 80,000. But they were planning on reducing the federal workforce by those tens of thousands in the first 100 days, in the first 3 months. We're not even in the first full 3 weeks. And already nearly 75,000 federal jobs have been slashed. And DOGE has only uncovered the fraud and the abuse of one single federal agency. What do you think that number of slashed jobs will look like over the course of the next year? Needless to say, the legacy media that lived off the dole of your tax dollars is flipping out. And in their hysterics, they're actually stepping on one rake after another, owning themselves in the most hilarious way possible. This is going to make your weekend. Wait until you see this. But first, gang, as you know, we're all about MAGA and MAHA here on this channel. Make America both great again and healthy again. And I got to tell you about my personal experience with the Elixir Mixer. Now, one of my team managers came to me and said that he and his wife had been taking an all-natural, all-in-one supplement that's helping them tremendously. And he thought it'd be a great idea for me to try it, being that I'm getting more serious and proactive about my health. So I did. As you know, I take lots of supplements. I love biohacking, and so I tried it. I'm a fan of every one of our sponsors of this channel, health sponsors. And so I tried it. And I got to say, this is my second month on it now. And I see why so many others are just absolutely spreading the word about this. The Elixir Mixer is absolutely amazing. Now, if you scrutinize the ingredients all the way down to the other ingredients all the way at the bottom, you can clearly see all of it is very high quality formula, completely made from only whole food source ingredients. My mental energy is increased, as you can see. My physical stamina is improving. My sleep has gotten better. And my appetite has gone down. I kid you not. I don't battle snack or carbohydrate cravings like I used to. I'm definitely feeling leaner, stronger. I'm looking forward to my next annual exam results, as I'm confident I'm going to see some improvements in my vitals and my diagnostics. All factors and benefits considered, this is amazing. And it's such a bargain. But to make it even better, I want to make sure you get the special extra discount on your orders. So that special code is Steve17. Okay. That's what I want you to do. Click on the link below and put in Steve17. Use that in the last checkout step, and you get to save even more on your personal monthly supply. This one you want to take for life. It is amazing. And if you've got a spouse or partner, just double it up, double your quantity, so you're both supplied with your best body you can get. Make sure to click on that link below to get your own Elixir Mixer now. I promise you're going to love this. Use promo code Steve17 for an awesome discount. Click on that link below right now.
Let us work, they shouted.
Let us work!
USAID personnel have been locked out of their offices and emails since Monday, leaving many confused as to whether they'll even have health care or paychecks coming. We spoke with one of those individuals who has spent the past decade at USAID.
Why in our conversation do you think you need to remain anonymous?
Everyone is really scared. First, we were scared for our jobs. Then we were scared for the safety of our programs. I have a family like most Americans, and I want to be brave, and I just don't want to put them at any more risk than I have to.
Elon Musk posted on X, USAID is a criminal organization, time for it to die. What did you think when you heard that?
He said that. He said we were vipers. He said that we were worms and not a bad apple, but just worms. He said that we are evil lunatics.
In recent days, the Trump-appointed chief of staff resigned, and the two heads of security put on leave after they refused to let DOGE-linked staffers access classified information.
Are you still officially employed by the U.S. government?
I do not know what my status is. Part of that is that what's been happening has been moving with incredible speed and also an incredible level of sloppiness.
Overnight, this notice said a plan was being formed to abruptly order home all non-essential personnel. The Trump administration argues the cuts will increase efficiency.
Not only have we abandoned our colleagues, which is an absolute moral atrocity, but we have abandoned our partners in the world. If you've ever seen those photos of people delivering bags of food or wearing the USAID vests or delivering medicines or the big trucks coming in with aid, it's got big USAID logos on it, right? It's got American for a reason. It's got American flags on it. It shows people this is the US coming to your aid.
So the legacy media that no one is watching anymore, and by the way, that's not an exaggeration. Walter Cronkite was able to get about 10 million more viewers per night in real numbers than what all cable and network news media are able to get now combined. Cronkite averaged about 30 million viewers a night and total population of 200 million. Whereas all cable and network news media combined today get barely 20 million in a population that's nearly twice that size of Cronkite's days. So no one's watching the legacy media anymore, but that's not stopping them from a full-blown attempt at turning these, frankly, parasites, these people who live off of our tax dollars, into victims. And when I say parasites, again, I'm not exaggerating. You do realize that federal employees do not pay a dime in taxes, do you not? You do realize that. Federal employees do not pay they don't pay a penny in taxes. And it's very easy to prove. Take your own income. For example, what would happen to your income if the federal government were to suddenly abolish all income taxes? What would happen to your income? What would happen to your paycheck? Immediately. Federal government abolishes all income taxes. Taxes are gone. What happens to your income? Does it go up or does it go down? It doesn't just go up. It'll go up 30, 40, 50%, right? Now, if you're a federal employee and they were to do that, they were to abolish income taxes, what happens to your pay? What happens to your income? It doesn't just go down. If we were to abolish taxes, like all taxes, all revenue to the government, what happens to every single federal employee's paycheck coming from the federal government? What happens? It doesn't just go down, it goes to zero. There isn't a penny there. There's no money left. They are paid off of our taxes. So whatever taxes they pay into, it's just splitting tax money. It's just separating tax money from the tax money that's being used for their income. So federal employees do not pay a dime in taxes. If taxes were to disappear, your income would go up, their income would disappear. So let this hit you. The legacy media is doing everything they possibly can to try to convince you that those people who live off of your hard work, who live off of your tax dollars, and who do not themselves pay a dime in taxes, that they are victims. And in the process, the legacy media is trying to sell the impossible. And they're stepping on rake after rake like never before. Check this one out.
This is a 19-year-old high school graduate who has used the unfortunate nickname Big Balls online. So that would be one way that we could refer to him. He is now working at Musk's behest inside Doge. And we looked into his background. And so we found several notable things, Aaron, one of which is that this individual has founded multiple companies, including one with another unfortunate name, Tesla.Sexy LLC, which he established in 2021. He would have been around 16 years old. Now, this LLC controls dozens of web domains.
so freaking funny. They don't even realize they're being trolled. Look at this image. Look at this. I mean, it actually gets funnier the longer you look at it. These CNN sycophants don't even realize that they're getting played. Elon's people are deliberately getting them to make fools of themselves on live TV. It's absolutely hilarious. Political co-founder Jim Vanderhyde is openly admitting that the legacy media has simply never been weaker in his lifetime. I mean, the very fact that their 24/7 anti-Trump coverage over the last, well, let's be blunt, over the last 8-9 years resulted in one of the biggest Republican landslides in modern political history. The very fact that they can do nothing to stop the total dismantling of the administrative state is proof that he has never seen the legacy media weaker in our lifetime, perhaps ever since its conception. Their ratings have crashed. Newspaper circulation is at its lowest it has been since the 1940s. Did you know that? Newspaper circulation is at its lowest levels since World War II. And now, to add insult to injury, now the tax dollars that we have since found out have been subsidizing this dying legacy media have completely dried up. Politico, the New York Times, the Associated Press, Reuters, the freaking BBC, they were all getting tens of millions of dollars of your tax money to push pro-Democrat, pro-swamp, pro-establishment, pro-globalist propaganda. And now it's all gone. It's all gone. The Trumpocalypse has blown it to smithereens. And now, to their horror, to their shock, the Trumpocalypse is even coming for none other than George Soros.
Soros and his son, whose money is funding a radio station, a series of radio stations that's been accused of broadcasting live locations, by the way, in Colorado, undercover ICE agents, locations of them. Meanwhile, KCBS Radio in San Francisco reportedly told listeners on January 26, get this, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents are currently carrying out an operation on the east side of town. The county's response network says agents in San Jose were in unmarked vehicles. FCC Chair Brendan Carr joins us now. He's running that probe. Concerning to you, Brendan?
Yeah, of course. Look, I try to look on the bright side of things. And here, I think that's the fact that we are having an unprecedented number of deportations taking place in this country. And for that, thank goodness for President Trump. Promises made, promises kept. He came in and said he's the person that can not only secure the border, but deport people that are here illegally. And he's carrying that out with unprecedented speed, thanks to Secretary Noem, Tom Homan as well. Here, this is really concerning. So what happened was you had ICE agents undercover doing operations in East San Jose, and part of the town known for violent gang activity, and you had this radio station broadcasting the live location, identifying the unmarked vehicles that they were in, and again, against the backdrop of Democrat leaders in Congress saying it's time for people to take fights to the street against Trump's agenda. So we have sent a letter of inquiry, a formal investigation into that matter, and they have just a matter of days left to respond to that inquiry and explain.
It's literally like falling apart right before their very eyes. I mean, I like how Scott Adams put it. He said, quote, Democrats are terrified of Doge and Musk because they have never witnessed this degree of competence. It looks alien to them. I mean that literally. People with experience see in Doge a process that is necessarily messy, but 100% on target in terms of speed, talent, and energy applied. To the inexperienced, it probably looks like a combination of chaos and a bank heist. I pity the inexperience. Here's a nice summary of what we've been seeing over these last 2.5 weeks, right? Wall Street Journal is reporting that Trump is getting ready to fire thousands of HHS employees. Climate Justice Division of the EPA is gone. 168 people have been fired. NGOs are shuttering migrant facilities across the country as federal funds dry up. USAID moved under Rubio, and 9,700 employees are put on administrative leave. Termination of all federal funds going to media. Doge has cut $751 million in federal, or $751 million in federal contracts and $45 million in leases. No men and women's sports. Pause of federal funding to sanctuary cities. Federal audit of all NGOs. Trump hasn't even been in office a full month. He hasn't even been in office in for a full 3 weeks. But there is one final piece in this puzzle to understand the extraordinary success of the Trumpocalypse. And that piece, for me, is the best one of them all. But first, gang, if you are just joining us, our super chats are up. So feel free to ask me your questions. It'll be my honor to answer them at the end here. You can send in your questions either through the super chats or by becoming a Courageous Conservative Club member by clicking on that link below. You have access to all kinds of exclusive live Q&As and special content. Either way, it'll be my privilege to answer your questions all throughout this live stream. Also, did you know that American homeowners have over $32 trillion in equity? The criminals are targeting it with a growing scam the FBI calls house stealing. So scammers can transfer your title out of your name using a one-page document that they file at the county. Then they can take out all these loans against it or even sell it behind your back. And the scariest part, you won't find out about it until collection or foreclosure notices start arriving in your mailbox, leaving you with a financial and legal nightmare. The best way to protect your equity is through Home Title Lock's exclusive $1 million triple lock protection. This service offers 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if fraud should occur, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title. So when was the last time you checked on your title? If you're like me, the answer was never, and that's exactly what scammers are counting on. The good news is that we partnered with Home Title Lock to offer you all 25% off their services. So go to HometitleLock.com, use my promo code TurleyTalks25. That's all one word, TurleyTalks25, to save 25% off. And you also get a free title history report to ensure you've not already been a victim of deed theft. And make sure you check out the $1 million triple lock protection details when you get there. Click on the link below. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code TurleyTalks25. All right, finally, the very speed by which this deep state totalitarianism is coming crashing down reminded me of a very good article that was written by Glenn Reynolds of Instapundit a few weeks back, where he develops this notion that the establishment is being washed away by a tidal wave he calls preference cascade. It's a preference cascade. It's a fascinating article, and it actually points to something that we've been talking about for a couple of years now on this channel called tipping point theory. I'll get into that in a mere moment here, but Reynolds identifies the tidal wave that this Trumpocalypse has unleashed on DC as this this preference cascade. And what he's talking about is this, quote, "What happened? It's like a spell broke. Since November's election or re-election of President Donald Trump, the woke is going away, and all sorts of problems are already resolving themselves. But why? Well, like us historically, Soviet citizens knew their system was found on lies too. But the system kept them isolated, unaware that so many of their fellow citizens felt the same way and unable to come together to act. This technique, used by totalitarians of all sorts, is called preference falsification. Keep that in mind. That's the true authoritarian tactic. The true totalitarian tactic is something called preference falsification, and Democrats are masters at it. And the legacy media to boot. Preference falsification, in which people are forced to profess belief in things that they know not to be true. If the powers that be are good at it, Virtually every citizen can hate them and want them out, but no one will do anything because every citizen who feels that way thinks that they're the only one or one of a tiny number. Now, let me just stop there because we've talked about a similar phenomenon on this channel. It's a process that Soviet scholars called hypernormalization, and it's a term derived from studies of Russian citizens' dispositions and inclinations towards the end of the Soviet experiment, primarily starting in the 1970s. What scholars found back in the 70s and 80s was that as the Soviet Union was beginning to wane, the vast majority of Russians knew that their system was totally corrupt, totally intellectually bankrupt. They knew that they were constantly being lied to by their leaders, and they knew that their leaders knew that they were lying to them. But, and this is key, even though everyone knew everyone was lying, they nevertheless pretended to accept the lies. They pretended to believe them. In other words, the lies basically became the social capital of society to such an extent that citizens had no other possible conception of society other than one based on lies. That's what's called hypernormalization. It's a fraud that has, in effect, been normalized. Everyone knows that the powers that be are corrupt frauds, but they put up with it because they've been conditioned by this corrupt regime to see these lies as the only possible political reality. They simply cannot imagine an alternative to this kind of politics. So Glenn Reynolds is citing something similar to this with preference falsification, where we're all forced to run around professing things we obviously don't believe. So Reynolds goes on, quote, "This works until something breaks the spell and the discontented realize that their feelings are widely shared, at which point the collapse of the regime may seem very sudden to outside observers or even to the citizens themselves." One scholar calls this sudden change a preference cascade. And I believe that is what's happening here. In America, the left spent years bullying people and accepting woke ideas on race, gender, and politics. There's considerable reason to believe that a majority of Americans never accepted these ideas. But between constant media repetition and the risk of being mobbed and canceled if you disagreed with them, most people for years were afraid to stand up. But two things put a stop to that. One was Donald Trump's election, and the other, and the two are related, was Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter, now X, which is now a free speech platform with roughly equal representation of Democrats and Republicans. Both had the effect of blowing up the lefty bubble and letting people realize that they, not the woke, were the actual majority. And as a result, the whole thing implodes. The whole hyper-normalized system that operated by preference falsification completely collapses like a house of cards. And I really do think that's what we're seeing. It's very much something akin to what is more commonly referred to as tipping point theory. That's what I think is playing out here. According to tipping point theory, all you need is about 20 to 25% of the population to be dedicated adherents to a new paradigm for people to start migrating en masse to that new paradigm. Scholars have actually studied how mass populations have moved away from one political or cultural paradigm to another. Sometimes it's the very opposite, and what they found is that you need about 20 to 25% of the population to be all in, to be the first to move in that direction. And then all you need is something like a preference cascade to set in where the majority realize that they actually share those sentiments of the 20 and 25%. They come navigating over, and all of a sudden now you have a new supermajority. The Overton window, as it's called, shifts, and the whole previous preference falsification collapses. It all crashes down. It's over. And so that's why I think we're seeing all these federal workers, along with the legacy media, just so absolutely shell-shocked. The shock and awe campaign launched on day one of the new Trump administration to drain the swamp has been unlike anything these career bureaucrats were prepared for. Because for decades, they have lived off of this preference falsification. For decades, they were told, they were groomed on the notion that as a federal worker, you were beyond reproach. You were part of permanent Washington, man. And as such, you were unfireable. You had so many layers of employment protection that getting a government job was akin to literally tapping into the divine forces of eternal life. Isn't that what Reagan said? The closest thing to eternal life on planet Earth is a government program. Your job was permanent. You didn't have to show up. You didn't have to really do anything. You didn't have to demonstrate competence or conscientiousness. You didn't have to acquire merit or excellence. You get every other Friday off. Did you know that? Federal employees get every other Friday off. 3-day weekends, twice a month. Woohoo! All you had to do was just get the gig. That's it. And usually you got the gig if you checked off all the right identity boxes. But once you got that gig, all 2 million of you, you were in. You were set. There was no taking that job away from you. You literally had the ultimate in job security. And the more you voted Democrat, the more secure your job would be. And the more it would grow to more and more people. It was a job permanence that perpetuated itself endlessly to the tune of over 2 million employees. 2 million employees. Can you even imagine what our founding fathers would have thought of this? That's twice the population, the current population of Delaware. But at noon of January 20th, that all changed. Within literally just hours, every single one of those 2 million federal employees felt the ground underneath them quake. It started as a rumble. Then the ground began to shift back and forth. And before you knew it, to their utter horror, a massive gape opened up and the earth underneath them split and swallowed them. And suddenly, this unassailable edifice beyond reproach that they had built over the last 7 decades completely imploded. That's called the preference cascade. It's literally a tidal wave of anti-federal sentiment that has been unleashed precisely because of all the waste and abuse and fraud that DOGE has exposed. That is the apocalypse that is overwhelming DC as we speak. They simply were not prepared for this, and it shows. Their days have indeed come to an end. This is the lasting legacy of the Trumpocalypse. And we're not even in week 4. Over to you. I want to hear what you have to say. As Josh and Mike assemble your questions, we often talk about how we can build and maintain up a conservative way of life. And one crucial aspect of that, of course, is your routine, staying strong physically and mentally. It's not just about living longer. It's about living better, which starts with a good night's sleep. You know that? All the biohacking articles I've read all say start with a good night's sleep. I've been using Beam Dream every single night now for a while. And gang, I got to tell you, it has completely changed the way I sleep. I'm frankly a horrible sleeper. I have a hard time turning off this professor's brain. But gang, seriously, since taking Dream, I literally crash. I fall asleep so fast. I sleep deeply, soundly all throughout the night. Beam Dream is made with the highest quality sleep-promoting ingredients to help you unwind and get that deep sleep we all need and deserve. In fact, it's become a nightly ritual of mine that I look forward to each and every day. If I might make the recommendation, I love their brownie batter flavor. Oh, I put a little cream in there and hot water, and it is to die for. Plus, I never wake up feeling groggy the next morning. Instead, I wake up feeling rested, ready to give my all, making a huge difference in how I show up every single day. Right now, you can save up to 35% off with my exclusive Beam discount. Just click on that link below or scan the QR code on the screen and use code Turley at checkout. Just Turley. It's time to stop letting sleepless nights hold you back. Transform your sleep and your day with Dream, because you deserve it. Click on that link below, scan that QR code right now, and make sure to use promo code Turley for 35% off. All right, Josh, Micah, what do we got? What are people chatting about today? Rotcorp. Dr. Turley, it seems the Democrats are at it again, trying to impeach President Trump. Was that Al Green? Al Green with his cane. Rawr! The angry old man with his cane. How do you see it going this time? I believe we've been lucky the last 8 years, but we cannot afford to give the same hope to the Democrats. What would the Turleynator do? Something that tells them resistance is futile. You can fight, but you will DEI. Tired. Turleynator theme played. Yeah, it's all theater, RT. It's all theater. I mean, again, the Republicans have the power. There's just no way around that. Even in the midterms, I think the best right now from the analysis I'm looking, I know it's early, the best we're going to see is Democrats slightly taking the House, doing all this nonsense, but the Republicans will keep the Senate, and there's just nothing they can do. It's all theater. It's all kabuki. And it just goes to show that they've learned nothing. Vlad the Impaler, I see the wisdom of holding off on using Doge for the voting rolls for the time being. They need to make the case that everything is corrupt. So we need to look at the election process too. When do you think that'll happen? It needs to happen in time for the midterm. Yeah. So they said that they wanted to be done by July the 4th, 2026, which will be just a few months, before the election. So Doge is supposed to finish its work by then and give that as a gift to the American people for our 250th anniversary. So they should be done. I think you're reading it absolutely right, Vlad. They are this hit on USAID was brilliant, and a lot of analysts are pointing that out. You hit foreign aid first. Why? Because foreign aid is the least popular form of government spending. Most Americans don't want to give out foreign aid. Yeah, you could give. I mean, if people are hurting and we can make a little bit of a difference here or there, fine. But most people do not want to give out foreign aid just in general. One of the most popular proposals that Trump gave was a freeze on all foreign aid. But then on top of that, you expose all this waste, fraud, and abuse. Oh my gosh, on something that people already do not like. Oh, forget about it. So this was brilliant. This hit of USAID was brilliant at a political level, in terms of the way it played out in public opinion, in the optics, but also at just a practical level, as you see how it just literally torpedoed and took out in a single strike the heart, one of the hearts, we'll find, one of the centers, one of the suns, the moons, whatever metaphor you want to use, of Democrat deep state corruption, of how the Democrats have maintained ownership over DC by bribing left-wing special interests in all sectors of society. So it was brilliant. I mean, it was an optics home run, and it was a practical take out the administrative state home run. Robo Guy 75, thank you for the super chat. You think Trump should use recess appointments for RFK, Tulsi, and Cash? They'll just keep stonewalling it at this point, and I'm worried about rhinos voting no. So I wonder if Trump should consider. At this point, I don't think you have to worry about it, Robo Guy. There's a couple of parliamentary procedures that they can that they've been able to use, but all they can do is they only go so far. They're already exhausting it, and it looks like Trump is so politically strong right now that Republicans, any Republican senator voting against either Tulsi or RFK will sign their political death warrant. So I don't think you have to worry about it. Were that to happen, yeah, absolutely. Trump will he will appoint them, I think, in a recess appointment. They're too important, and particularly RFK and Tulsi, because they're part of they're symbols of the political realignment between MAGA and Maha. So they'll be a part of his government. There's no way around that. Paul Luiso, good morning, Dr. Steve. Now that Doge has scuttled USAID and the mainstream media propagandists will no longer be paid to produce left-wing claptrap, do you think that we'll finally get unbiased news? No, because I just think they're so entrenched, and the people that kind of money and that kind of corruption brought in are corrupt by nature. They are left-wing ideologues. They don't know how just look at the coverage that they're giving right now. The unbiased news that you're getting is primarily curated news. So you want to get a multiple source of you want to get multiple opinions on a particular issue, and then draw your own conclusion from that. So that's why independent content creators like myself, that's why we've been able to rise so prominently in this era today of curated content, because we can't hide behind the moniker of CNN or MSNBC to legitimize and certify our content. We have to deliver each and every single day the best content, imagine the most accurate content. And that's the only way you're going to give us the time of day. The only legitimacy and certification that I get is my content. That's it. If I give you crap, you're going to turn me off. I don't get to hide behind the moniker, a corporate moniker of CNN and MSNBC or whatever that verifies me, as it were. So I think in the end, that's the closest thing we get to unbiased news. Unbiased news is going to come with, ironically, a set of biases all coming together, a conglomeration of biases all coming together, and then you being able to step back, and it's technically referred to as critical realism. You're able to step back and make the best decision based on all the information that's given to you, and then also based on those you trust the most because they consistently deliver. Okay, Micah is saying we just had breaking news. It's now been uncovered that USAID recently gave over $15 million to Pakistan's election commission, which systematically rigged recent elections. Yeah, against Imran Khan or Ilhan Khan. I'm forgetting his first name. Khan, K-A-H-N. They're populists, the Pakistani Trump, as it were. They deliberately rigged the election to get rid of him. He's very, very popular. I remember having a wonderful Pakistani cab driver in Japan, of all places, in Tokyo. He actually took us on a tour to Mount Fuji, and we talked for about 2 hours about Pakistani politics. It was a lot of fun. He had moved to Japan with his family, and he loved Khan. And so we talked about it, and I'd done several videos on Khan, and we just had a great time. It's really neat to be able to talk international politics with people. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, we're giving $15 million to rig elections all over the world. RT Corp, Dr. Steve, sorry everyone, literally anything random happened to interrupt the quality of the live stream last night. Turley Talkers, that's okay, no worries. Hope all as well. Rock Court, Deep State, there you go. That's right. RT Corp, Deep State, that's right. Yeah, we had some interruptions, and yeah, we're doing better with that. Franz, good morning, Dr. Steve. In a multipolarity world, could you explain the importance of unilateral trade agreements and our economic security? Yeah. So I think a good way of trying to understand it is economic nationalism is not an actual economic theory per se. So economic nationalism is not protectionist, as it often is. Economic nationalism is not free market. Economic nationalism isn't globalist. It's not multilateral or bilateral in its trade agreements. Economic nationalism is all of that. Economic nationalism in a world of multipolarity where we divide up into civilizational nationalist spheres. Multipolarity involves an economic system that by definition is subservient to the protection of culture and nation and custom. So economic nationalism is whatever the a state or a people group, population, whatever they believe are the best economic policies that enable their culture to flourish. So for some, that's socialism. For others, like Javier Milei, that's almost like an anarcho-capitalism. Jair Bolsonaro, very is drawing a lot from the Chicago school. Very libertarian, very free market. Where for the States, it might be a bit more protectionist. Japan, it's certainly very much more protectionist. Whatever the economic system that is most conducive to your own cultural flourishing, that is most protective of cultural flourishing, that is what you're going to do. So say, for example, like in Argentina, in a nation that has been absolutely stifled by the suffocating socialism of their policies, then the best thing for Argentine culture is to unleash the giant of productivity and economic possibilities through this almost literally anarcho-capitalistic, these anarcho-capitalistic policies. Same, we saw that with Nayib Bukele tapping into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in order to boost, to put some rocket fuel to his country's economic growth. So I think that's the best way of understanding it, is that having the freedom to be able to choose your economic policies and the trade agreements, I think you mean bilateral, by the way, bilateral trade agreements that extend from that, enables a world where culture can be protected, and economic forces become subservient to those cultures. When you have a one-size-fits-all multipolar WTO, IMF, World Bank trade system, your culture be damned. Your culture needs to adjust itself to the new realities of this economic machine, this economic system. That's I could never stand. I remember sitting in a Ben Sasse lecture, and Ben Sasse says, "Well, we want to do this or that with our trade policies, but in today's global economy, that's just not realistic." That's patent bullshit. It's patent bullshit. It's part of this contradiction that said that with this globalist contradiction, it says, "Oh, we give you more freedom than you could ever imagine. Our globalist system has given more freedom to the human population than ever before, and globalism is inevitable. Globalism is unstoppable." Well, which is it? Am I free, or is globalism inevitable whether I want it or not? So I think you're seeing a world emerge with bilateral trade agreements where economic security is understood as subservient to cultural security. So the two need each other and imply one another. Steve, what do you think that DOJ will find when they finish their audit of CMS? And do you think it will lead to massive fraud cases? Will those potential cases recoup some, albeit small amount, of the rampant left in Medicare and Medicaid? Centers for Medicare Services? Is that what CMS is? I have no idea what CMS is. No, I don't know if that's it. Let me see. Just make sure. I guess so. Is that Center for Medicare and Medicaid? Okay, CMS, Centers for Medicare. Okay. I'm already reading that they've rated Medicare, and it's insane. It's nuts. We're talking an epidemic of superbilling, overbilling, of inflating diagnoses. So you have apparently numerical diagnoses 1, 2, 3. Your conditions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If your condition's 3, they'll make it. They'll file it as a condition 4. If your condition's 4, they'll file it as condition 5. The amount of fraud and abuse in Medicare and Medicaid as well is going to be beyond anything I think we ever imagined, and I think it already is. We're already seeing again. It looks like we can balance the budget at this point just by eliminating fraud and abuse. And again, remember, no one is opposed to that. Well, maybe 10% of the population who live off the fraud and abuse, but no one is opposed to eliminating fraud, abuse, and waste. No one. This is the brilliance of DOGE. This is the brilliance of the Department of Government Efficiency. So I think it's going to be insane. Bert, morning, Dr. Steve. Do you think the Gitmo plan could be a mass escape from there into Cuba? Then Cuba could send the prisoners to their home country. Possibly. That's a good question. Then Cuba tries to get rid of them because they can't send them here with our closed border. That's a good question. I don't know. I just think it's very similar to, and it's no coincidence that we made a deal with Nayib Bukele in El Salvador to transfer some of our prisoners to the super prison there, the mega prison that he has there. I think that the 30,000 beds at Gitmo are basically our version of the mega prison of El Salvador that helped knock violent crime rates down 97% in this nation. So I just think we're working together with other nations that have success stories in bringing law and order back to their countries. Kevin, Dr. Turley, with what DOGE has already uncovered with USAID, do you believe, as I do, that if you follow the money, it will likely lead to our most backstabbing rhinos or most silent? I don't see much difference between Chucky or McConnell or Gramnesty or Romney. Do you think that it could even lead to justices that rewrite bills for government health care so that what was unconstitutional could be implemented as a tax? Oh, my heavens. You're bringing in Robertson on this, too. We'll never forgive him for that, will we? In reinterpreting the mandate, the Obamacare mandate, as a tax. Yeah, of course. It's a uniparty. It's the duopoly. Of course, they all have their hands in it. The one advantage we've got is, as vile as rhinos are, the one advantage we got is Democrats own DC. Republicans merely rent it. So when we uncover USAID, we're seeing how the Democrats owned DC. We're seeing how the Democrats basically owned the globalist world. So they entrenched themselves into government federal departments, and then they use those federal departments as slush funds to pay off left-wing special interests all over the world in exchange for both their writing checks back to Democrats, enabling them to beat out Republicans in terms of fundraising by 2 to 3 to 1. And also they keep other governments compliant by paying them off as well internationally. So the Democrats own DC and the Republicans merely rent. A number of those renters have learned how to profit themselves off of the Democrats' ownership. That's what I think are the rhinos. But in the end, it's not theirs. They don't own it. It is a uniparty, granted, but it is a Democrat uniparty. And they don't own it. And it is because it's their party that's ripping this apart. They have every incentive to go along with it. The moment they try to get in the way, they'll get run over as well. Because again, there's no political leverage whatsoever in trying to defend waste, fraud, and abuse. Not the legacy media is finding that out. The Democrats are finding that out. They're all finding that out the hard way. There is no political leverage whatsoever in trying to defend waste, fraud, and abuse, period. RoboGuy75. By the way, I might be the only one, but I don't want Canada to become a state. It'll screw us over in the long run in regard to how many voters Dems will get from it. I don't mind it as a territory, at least. No, RoboGuy, I don't think you have to worry about it. Canada's not going to become this 51st state. For example, what did Trump say this past week about Gaza and the United States owning Gaza and coming in and rebuilding Gaza right into the Riviera of the Middle East? Right, almost within 48 hours of him saying that at the press conference with Bibi, Egypt and Jordan announced they will be central in helping to rebuild Gaza. They are going to take responsibility in aiding Palestinians, providing food relief, shelter, and rebuild Gaza. That's 4D chess. All Trump has to do is push an issue that seems so outrageous, and then he goes for it. He doesn't back down. He goes for it. He pushes that. Then everything that would be a subservient to that, ideally, that we get the Saudis, that we get the Jordanians, that we get Egyptians to kind of come in and rebuild. All of a sudden, it happens overnight. They all come out and say, in order to prevent this absurd thing from happening, we'll step up to the plate as a preventative and do our part. It's brilliant. And I think it's the same thing. Trump is just pissed, basically, that Canada rips us off. They take advantage of us, again, like everything we're seeing with USAID. We love our fellow Canadians, but Trump says Ottawa is basically ripping us off. They don't pay their NATO dues. They only spend about half of what they should be spending on military defense because they live right next to us. They put all kinds of protectionist measures on their trade goods that we don't put on, and they're ripping us off $200 billion a year. That's his argument. Plus, he wants access to the Arctic because that's the importance of Greenland, because of the trade route that it's turning into, that Russia basically has a monopoly over right now. He wants to be able to push back against that and provide a corrective to Russian monopolization of the Arctic trade route. And he wants access to the minerals and natural resources up there. And so by peppering them as the 51st state, he can get all access to all this. Look, we'll give you this. We'll give you this. We'll give you this. Just stop saying you're going to turn us in the 51st state. Stop. Enough of that. Oh, okay. No problem. So that's the art of the deal. That's basically, as I understand it, you go way, way up here with incredible demands, and then you come back down. When you come back down to earth, you're exactly where you wanted in the ideal deal. Franz, can we do some simple math? When an international conglomerate of illegal aliens here looking for work and a mess to clean up in Gaza with the desire for international involvement, does 1 + 1 still equal 2? No, so there you go, Franz. I mean, I think, well, first of all, Trump said we're actually not spending a dime there. We're not sending any troops there. I think it is a measure to try to get Jordan and Egypt to step up to the plate. And because of the normalization of relations between Jordan and Israel, and Egypt and Israel, they would rather have, Netanyahu would rather have the Jordanian king, the Egyptian president overseeing Gaza than Hamas. That's basically what Trump is doing there. So I wouldn't worry about it. Back to Dr. Steve, what do you think about the 3 unpopulated Canadian northern territories being purchased to protect North America from Russian, possibly Chinese control of the Arctic? These territories could be annexed to Alaska. Greenland would be the icing on the cake. Yeah, I think you're thinking the way Trump is thinking. That's the way. So he wants to expand territorially for the purpose of situating America in this rising civilizationalist world, and he wants to situate us optimally in that rising civilizationalist world. And yes, absolutely, for him, the Arctic is central to a North American national security. So yeah, I can see that definitely. Terry, how do these people at USAID sleep at night? And not just because they have a good mattress. They lie like rugs. Do they really believe that trash they're spewing out? There's probably a cognitive dissonance there. I think that's why they're so disturbed and so strange in terms of who they are. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. I just think the whole system is so seedy. It's so swampy. It's so corrupt that it is eventually just going to collapse. It is eventually just going to fall apart, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Pat, I'm not receiving meeting emails for Fridays. I do receive them for Monday. Currently, I'm only getting text message for Friday meeting. Currently, I'm only getting text. I think last week my Friday meeting email came an hour too late. Just wondered where the glitch might be. Thank you. Hey, yeah, Micah, Josh, can you yes, email Micah saying email support@turleytalks.com. Support@turleytalks.com, and they'll take care of you, Pat. Mickey, Dr. Steve, did you see all the Democrats that weren't allowed entry into the education department this morning? I think maybe because I'm a highly trained professional, you didn't catch me. I was looking at my phone during one of the clips, and I was looking precisely at that video. All of them were sure mad that all the buttered popcorn was, but all that buttered popcorn was sure good. Yes, it is amazing. They're trying to awaken a mass resistance that's not there because a new supermajority has appeared. And they're now in the very unfortunate position of having to defend what many are calling the 20%. So you got your 80-20 rule. Supermajorities are going to be like 80%, 60% hardcore. They're all for it. But there's going to be another 20% that are pretty favorable or whatever. They don't care, but they're certainly not against it. So 80% of the country is all for eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. Then you've got this 20% parasitical portion of the population that the Democrats have decided to be the defenders of. And so now and you see it. The optics show they are defending this 20%. It's hilarious. It's terrible, but let them do it. I love, like you said, just break out the butter. It's great. Vlad the Impaler, how furiously do you think folks are trying to cut deals with Trump to keep them from being exposed? Oh, I think there's a lot of deals that are being cut right now. That's what I mean. I don't think we have to worry at this point. I don't think we have to worry about RFK or Tulsi or Cash. They're scared to death. They're seeing the single most powerful president we have seen since FDR. FDR unleashed the power of the executive branch in 1932. We're seeing something very comparable today in 2025. 1933, I should say. We're seeing something very comparable now in 2025. They're scared to death, and they know it. Now that they know that if they could just survive the next couple of years, they'll probably be okay. And so that's what they're trying to do. But I mean, until then, I mean, yeah, there's no question. They're anyone who thinks they can make a deal with Trump is trying to make a deal with him right now. You could be sure of that. Vlad, given the challenges of a national figure in Canada successfully appealing to the divergent interests of the eastern and western provinces, do you foresee Canada breaking up? I don't know. I mean, so Wexit, and so you got Wexit, you got Western Canada want to break away. You've got Quebec wanting to break away. We'll see. We'll just see how things play out. Secession dynamics are strong in the world today because the world is re-territorializing, right? We talk about that all the time. Now that globalism is breaking up, populations are reasserting their political sovereignty at the local level. It's also known as neo-regionalism. And that, for most states, that's just reasserting a renewed nationalism, national sovereignty, like we saw with the UK and Brexit. But sometimes it doesn't stop there, and it just keeps going, like we saw with Czechoslovakia. It just starts breaking up, or even what we saw most recently in Ukraine with the Donbass region breaking away, Donetsk and Lugansk. So, yeah, right now I'm not seeing a major secessionist dynamic in Canada, but that doesn't mean it's not there. It just needs an occasion to boil over. And I'm just not saying, like Texas. Texas got really hot. I interviewed Dan Miller for the first time in 2021, I think in February 2021. And I think that's when Texas was the most popular. There was just a sense of, we're out of here. I mean, DC is an unassailable swamp. They're corrupt to the core. We'll never win another national election again. And that's when Dan saw just the membership of the Texas national movement grow by leaps and bounds. But now nobody's even talking about Texas right now. So again, it seems to me secessionism has its seasons. And I'm not seeing that with Canada yet, but it's always there. It's always brewing on the surface precisely because of this neo-regionalism and reterritorialization. Vlad, how soon do you foresee people from other countries wanting to take a look under the hood of their government's finances? Canada, the EU? Good question. Good question. Depends how successful we are. I think it's going to be, DOGE is going to be incredibly successful. I think it's already has been, just with one government department, one federal department, if you can believe it. So, no, I think it's, I think this is a, what do we have? We had the Arab Spring, right? I think we're seeing a civilizational spring happening here. And I think it's just, we're already seeing it with more increased calls to leave the WHO. So Matteo Salvini wants to leave from Italy, the former deputy prime minister of Italy, leader of the Lega party. He wants to leave the WHO. Geert Wilders has been talking about leaving the WHO. We're already seeing Javier Milei of Argentina has signed an order to leave the WHO. That they are all following in line with President Trump, and Trump followed in fairness to them. Liechtenstein was one of the only countries in the world that has, to my knowledge, either withdrew very early on or has never been a member of the WHO. So yeah, it just seems we're getting it's a domino effect. Quark, good morning, Dr. Stephen. Happy Friday. Do you believe Trump should push for Ukraine to remain neutral like Putin is claiming he wants, or should Trump continue to push for Ukraine to join NATO? Well, yeah, no, I think Trump has taken NATO off the table. He knows that's absurd. There's no way we're going to fight to defend Ukraine. Yeah, he would have to take NATO off the table. I don't even think NATO is on the table anymore, to be honest with you. I know Zelensky's been talking a big game, but in the end, again, there's really nothing he can do. There's nothing DC can do. There's nothing NATO can do. Russia's taken 20% of Ukraine. It took the Russian-speaking 20% that it wanted. I thought they were going to go all the way into Odessa, so they would be up on the border of Transnistria. We'll see. We'll see. But talk about as I understand it, there are a lot of talks going on behind the scenes right now to broker a deal. Trump wants peace, and NATO membership of Ukraine would be overwhelmingly provocative. Russia has said Ukraine will not be in NATO, and if they have to, Ukraine will not exist. There's no possibility of Ukraine being allowed in NATO. Period. They're not going to have NATO missiles at their border. Just that simple. Vaughn Cassidy, Dr. Steve, a fatalistic but true statement is culture trumps strategy. I like that. Culture trumps strategy. In light of this, can the USAID be saved, or must it be burned to the ground? Yeah, I think it's basically been burned. So, there is, so USAID consolidates foreign aid. That's technically what it does. That's why Kennedy set it up back in the early 60s. And you're always going to have foreign aid, because foreign aid is used obviously as not just as a humanitarian tool, but it's used there as a way of, it's as political leverage. You're always going to have foreign aid, but you do not need anything like the monstrosity that we saw where it became a slush fund and where it became a money laundering operation. That's all gone. And what it turns out, what we're finding out is that was 99% of USAID. 99% of USAID was a slush fund. That's what it got turned into. So I think it got burned to the ground and remade, and it's been remade now under the auspices of the State Department, where it can be disciplined and held to account. As a separate department, it did whatever it wanted, had a certain level of autonomy that it just simply doesn't have anymore. Apparently, USAID was notorious for telling senators and representatives to go F off. They were notorious. They would get subpoenaed all the time. Records would be subpoenaed all the time. They would stonewall. They'd hide behind bureaucratic, walls, and those days are over. Griffin, think that Trump will be forced to push through the rest of his cabinet and recess appointment? No, I don't think so. I think we're going to see some. I think we're going to see most everybody. We should be seeing pretty much everybody confirmed next week. RFK, Tulsi, Cash. We should be all right. James, take the buyout before you can't sell your house in the coming DC housing market crash. Free tip. Go Doge. I love it, James. I love it. Yeah, I'm with you. I hope you don't own DC real estate because it's about to come crashing down. Think about, too, the possibilities electorally of Virginia. I mean, if they start cleaning out like 1 million federal jobs by this time, a year and a half from now, and they're all moved out of Northern Virginia. I mean, Northern Virginia is on the, I mean, that's on the map, man. We can take Virginia, especially. I mean, Northern Virginia, I think, really accounts for more or less that 5% that went for that 5% margin that went for Kamala. Certainly the 10% margin that went for Biden. If we can start shaving that down with the continued trajectory of movement of Republican registrations in Virginia and New Jersey and New York. I talked to Brandon. You guys saw I talked to Brandon Strzok last night, and from Walkaway campaign, and he's centering on both Virginia and New Jersey, along with Scott Pressler and Cliff Maloney, to turn those into swing states for the next midterms in 2026. So it's really exciting stuff. Yeah. Benton, if the 2 million inhabitants of Gaza are immigrated to another country, the West Bank becomes stable, there's permanent presence in Lebanon and Syria, then the prophesied conditions of unwalled villages will be achieved. This would mean Ezekiel 38 prophecy would be fulfilled. Is this far-fetched or real possibility? Well, it just depends how you interpret Ezekiel 38, Benton. So there is what's known as a preterist interpretation, where it was actually fulfilled with Persia, if I recall, Persia and Babylon, back during the time before Christ, during the exile. Ezekiel's written during the exile. So I don't know. I don't have, in terms of its application to a modern prophetic schema or outworking, I just wouldn't know. Bottom line is, Gaza has an infrastructure problem and an ideology problem. Infrastructure problem, ideology problem. And what Trump's proposal was that if you rebuilt it into the Riviera of the Middle East, you solve the infrastructure problem, and then that would attract an international population like Dubai has, and that would dilute the ideological extremism and radicalism of Hamas. So he thought the rebuilding of Gaza into a beautiful Riviera of the Middle East would solve both infrastructure and ideology. MGTOW Michigander. Keep up the great work, Dr. Steve. You are the free press. God bless you, my friend. And good riddance to the employment of those globalist thieves now pretending to be victims. Isn't that unbelievable? And notice victimology is the only thing they know how to defer back to. They don't. That's the only. Their worldview is a victim. It is oppressor, oppressed, victim, victimizer worldview. and with the belief that the victim and the oppressed always have the moral high ground by definition. And nobody's listening to him anymore. Everyone's just going, they're eating their popcorn going, bye. So, they don't even deserve to DoorDash our hamburgers. I agree. Away with them, especially with all the evil that was committed by them. And I think for most of them knowingly. MAGA 20 forever. Dr. Steve, will Trump follow through on his campaign promises to eliminate taxes on Social Security and tips? Is total elimination of personal income taxes a real possibility during the next 4 years? Yes, it's the golden age. Anything is possible. So I would love to see the abolition of the IRS just for the very purpose, because it's constantly used as part of the Democrats' weaponization of citizens of our nation. It's the ultra wealthy, tax breaks for the rich, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, Mike is saying it might actually happen tomorrow at this rate, the speed and rapidity that Doge is going with and Trump is going with. But I think the way that the IRS has been weaponized and politicized should put it on the chopping block. I would love to see tariffs. I would love to see T-bills that are not, of course, as I understand, the majority of which are not even bought by American citizens. They're bought by foreign governments because of the default currency, the U.S. dollar. So rather than whenever they have a surplus of dollars, rather than translate it back into their own indigenous currency where they lose money, they just dump it in T-bills and actually make money. So that's how our government can get paid. It could get paid through fees, it could get paid through tariffs, it could get paid through T-bills. It doesn't need income taxes. Again, our founding fathers made it unconstitutional to tax citizens directly. Let that hit you. They were libertarians in that sense. It was unconstitutional to tax citizens directly. You needed, what was it, the 16th Amendment to pass in 1913 to institute income taxes. So yeah, get rid of it as far as I'm concerned. As far as the others are concerned, Trump has already put out his plan to Congress, telling him he wants all taxes eliminated on Social Security and on tips. Absolutely. There's no reason anybody who's taking in Social Security, or also on overtime pay, anybody who's working overtime, anyone who's getting tipped in the service industry, no reason whatsoever that that level of conscientiousness for tips and for overtime should be taxed, period. RT Corp, Dr. Turley, can you quantify federal employees don't pay taxes? I'm a federal employee in the military, and I pay federal taxes plus Georgia state taxes, all my income from all my income. However, my incentive and special pay aren't taxed. Also, when in a combat zone, I don't pay taxes, but I still do pay tax. All right, so I get what I know it. So here's the way it works. And make sure you understand too, I'm not like anarcho-capitalist. I don't wipe my hand of, okay, everybody who's getting paid by the federal government is necessarily evil. No. It's the nature of, I mean, if you are a government employee, it is the nature of the position not to pay taxes in the situation that we're in. So to me, then you've got to make sure you only have necessary and good and flourishing government employees. You don't want all this waste and abuse, because the fact that none of them pay taxes makes it even worse. So what do I mean by that? Bottom line is you have producers and you have takers, for lack of a better term. Okay. Now, I think, again, I need to, for ROT, for you would obviously be a very important, as it were, taker. You would be we need you. We need our military. We need, President Trump is going to be part of this group right now in terms of the salary. Well, I guess he's waiving his salary, but I mean, all of his security detail, the White House, everything like that, that's all paid by tax dollars, right? We need that. That's good. We're all for that. What we hate is the fraud and abuse. But bottom line is you don't pay taxes, you're paid by taxes. You don't pay taxes, you pay by taxes. And again, the example I'm giving here is if I were to look at my income, my paycheck after taxes suddenly by a miracle of a magic wand disappeared, my taxes would go up several percent. My pay would go up several percentage points, because the money that's taken out of my pay that normally goes to, say, in this case, the federal government, comes back. Because the money that I'm paid by is a money that is produced by consumers who support Turley Talks. But if I were to work for the government, if I were to work for the federal government, my paycheck is coming from the revenue that the government raises from taxes. That's where my pay, it's not coming from consumers who are voluntarily supporting Turley Talks. It's coming from tax revenue that's been expropriated from the population. So if that tax revenue disappears, where goes my paycheck? Where goes my paycheck? Does it go up or does it go down? Neither. It disappears, because the revenue that my paycheck is derived from disappeared. So that's what I mean when I say federal employees don't actually pay federal income tax. Yes, I know you get your paycheck and it says that 30% of it went to FICA and all this other stuff. Yeah, I know it says that. But all they actually did was withhold tax money from your income, because you're paid by taxes. So in the end, say $100,000 is allocated to pay a federal employee's salary, and then they take $30,000 and put it to taxes. All they did is just paid you $70,000 out of the tax revenue, not $100,000. Again, it's not hard to understand. When you're not being paid by tax revenue, if taxes disappear, your income goes up because you don't have to pay those taxes anymore. If you're being paid out of tax revenue and the taxes disappear, your income disappears right along with it, because your income is derivative of that tax revenue. So that's all I'm saying. In the end, you're not actually paying taxes. Now, that's not a bad thing per se, because you have to have federal employees. You have to have people who are paid out of that tax pool to do certain public jobs, like the military. Thank God for you, and thank you for your service. What I'm really pushing on is these pampered scum who use this moral blackmail to try to persuade us that they're somehow victims, when they don't literally make any contribution to society at all, either in their work or in their pay. Bottom line, that was where I'm coming from. Rachel, such a fan, Dr. Steve. Thank you for doing this in such dark times. No longer, no more. I guess from the past, right? Any plans for Trump to take on our national debt? I believe Trump gets rid of it. The Dems and establishment are done indefinitely. I agree with you, Rachel. I think he is. This is a very important thing for Elon Musk. He's been talking about it endlessly now for the last couple of years, that if we don't get our national debt under control, we're not going to have a nation anymore. And so that's what this is all about. That's why these guys are totally undaunted by anything the legacy media says. They're not afraid of this at all. And Trump does nothing. He doesn't have a, forgive the phrase, he doesn't have an F to give in this either. He's not running for re-election. He doesn't care. So and Elon Musk isn't getting paid. He's not running for election. That's what they're so scared about. They have no political leverage over these guys whatsoever. National debt is at the heart of this. And I think they're going to. I agree with you. If Trump is able to eliminate the debt, it's over. The Democrats are gone as a political force for the next generation. James, taxed enough already was ignored by both parties and attacked by the Democrat wing of the GOP. Can you hear me now? Tea Party not funded by the government. That's right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Taxed enough already. This is the great. I think in many respects, this is what we are seeing are sort of the three great movements of the Republican, of modern Republican politics, all converging together. It's like a perfect storm. It's the Reagan Revolution, it's the Gingrich Revolution, and it's the Tea Party Revolution, all coming together. I would argue in many ways of Pat Buchanan's conservatism of the heart, his nationalist populist program. So, yeah, I think this is the great revenge of the Tea Party. No question. I love that. Everett, thank you so much for the gift. Terry, do you anticipate arrests of senators and representatives and their expulsion from their respective chambers? If so, which states are likely to come from? Maybe I'll move out there and file as a candidate, and dare I hope any of them are from my present state of residence, Virginia. Yeah, we got to flip Virginia for sure. I don't know. We'll see. So now we are going into the enforcement or the retributive side of things. So up to this point, it's been solely the dismantling of the administrative state. But now with Pam Bondi as Attorney General and then Cash as our FBI director, we're going to go to the next phase, and that's the enforcement side, the retributive justice side of things, where we're going to start holding people accountable. What that will look like, I do not know. I do not know how far they want to go. Again, I think it's very clear Trump knows this is a once in like a history making moment. This is not once in a lifetime. This is once in a nation's history moment. And I think he's going to milk it for all it's worth. So we'll see. We'll see how far he goes with it. Wreck Dog, Dr. Steve, Doge is exposing so much waste in USAID alone. It seems like another 40 chess move. By cutting out all the waste, Trump can show that we can pay off the debt balance and budget and eliminate most taxes within 10 years, like Musk suggested. Do you think Trump will succeed taking us back to a time of no taxes or just sales taxes and tariffs and a fully functioning and funded government at all levels? That is what I would like to see. I think the federal income tax has been used as a wedge issue and has been politicized and weaponized by the Democrats against us for far too long. I think it needs to be taken off the table from them. And I would love to see us go to a national sales tax, tariffs, T-bills, fees, all that kind of stuff. And the government can raise, as Trump has said, they could raise trillions doing stuff like that. We don't need to be taxed anymore. So I'm with you 1,000%. And I think he's going to be very, very successful. And again, we're let it hit you, Rock Dog. We're not even 3 full weeks into this yet. That's just, to me, what's so astonishing. So yeah, all bets are off, man. All bets are off. Terry, already a number of judges has stymied Doge with temporary restraining orders, preliminary injunctions, whatever you call them. Where do I go to file or contribute to a friend of the court brief in support of Elon Musk and his team? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. If anybody knows, put that in the comments or in the chat where you can go. Terry, I don't think you have to worry about it too much. Doge already knew this was going to happen. They just go to particularly inside the corrupt DC circuit, which I think needs to be broken up. I think hopefully that's going to be one of the things Trump does, given that he was a victim of that circuit. There's really nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do. They can order all the injunctions they want. Trump doesn't have to listen. This is all ultimately going to the Supreme Court anyway, and the Supreme Court will knock them all down. They know the executive branch has complete jurisdiction over all this. This is, like you're saying, it's all to stonewall it. It's all to slow foot it. But they're not, nothing that no injunction is going to stop them. It hasn't, it won't. Doge is doing what it's doing. And Trump is basically just ignoring these rogue federal judges. Jim, wait. We can send Turley super chats now. Yes, even Google is giving up the woke. I'm loving this universe. I phased into, yeah, Jim, it happened literally about 2 weeks after Trump won. Let's see. Yeah, was it 2 weeks after he won? I think 3 weeks maybe. Yeah, but we did. We got it. We got our super chats back. Yeah, January 14th. So just a few days before he was inaugurated, we got our super chats back. We got re-monetized. Thank God. That's, of course, a huge shout out to Ralph Cochran, my business partner, and our whole team behind us here, who were very proactive in pushing back on Google to, hey guys, let's go here. You cannot justify keeping us demonetized, but we were demonetized for over a year, and you guys kept us afloat. So thank you so much, and thank you for that super chat gift. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, did you see that a Seventh Circuit judge ruled yesterday that preemptive pardons are unconstitutional since the recipient hasn't been charged with a crime yet? I've not seen that. This is obviously going to have to get worked out in the courts, and I'm delighted to see that. Absolutely. Lucas, would you agree that forced diversity, aka DEI, is racism in its practice? Diversity has been happening when people come together naturally. Yeah, of course. Yeah, the Supreme Court, as I understand it, has ruled that it certainly when it comes to university admission standards. In the end, DEI, as I understand it, and the way it's practiced, is simply reverse discrimination. That people are being locked out of a position solely because they are not a particular race, or they are not a particular gender, or they're not a particular sexual orientation. That is by definition discriminatory. If you don't get a job, if I deny you a job, even though you may even be more qualified than the other person, the other applicant, and they get the job instead of you, and you ask why, well, I could be passive, and I could say, well, it's because he's white. But if I said, no, it's because, but you didn't get it because you're Hispanic, I mean, this is blatant racism. And there's no, I mean, to try to fog it with, yes, but statistics show, and well, but 70% of the jobs are already being given to white people, and we just want to make sure the other 30%, all doesn't matter. If I'm being denied a job because of my race, by definition, it is a form of racial discrimination by definition. If I'm being denied college admittance because of my race, it is racial discrimination. There is no way around it. And we can be empathetic. We could say, all right, maybe this was a legitimate attempt to try to course correct after years of racial discrimination. Fine. But this is not how you course correct. That's not how you do it. Just because your intentions were good doesn't make what you were doing good. The ends don't justify the means. So yes, absolutely, Lucas. I think you get it. You understand, definitely. James, a bill to require the 10 Commandments to be displayed in South Dakota schools just passed committee. It's already passed the more liberal Senate and is heading to the House floor. Keep that in your prayers, Zach. Absolutely, we will, James. So they will join Louisiana, and I believe Oklahoma as well, and Tennessee, several states that require the 10 Commandments to be displayed in all public institutions, actually. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, Chelsea Clinton getting $82 million in more than the Fed spent on federal firefighters with cancer over the last 40 years. Can Attorney General Bondi potentially bring criminal charges against these people getting payouts from USAID? We'll see. Again, so we are in the so I know you've been reserving the buttered popcorn for this moment. I know, Rock Dog. I know. We're just getting into the enforcement phase, the retributive justice phase. thus far, we've just been doing dismantling. I don't know what to expect yet. It's just too early. Pam just got sworn in this week. We'll see with Cash. She can't really do much without the FBI. So we'll see what Cash does. But the combination of those two, I would not be surprised if we started seeing some pretty prominent figures getting perp walked, which they deserve to be. They deserve to be publicly paraded and humiliated for what they've done to this nation and what they tried to do to President Trump and what they did to 1,500 J6, political prisoners. Mitchell, there's a rumor that the Treasury Department is still approving funds to spend for foreign aid. Do you think Trump could put a stop to this? Yeah, they're on top of it all. If you follow people like Data Republican on X and a number of others who are working with Elon right now, are part of the Doge team. They're amazing. They're incredible. They're these algorithmic geniuses. They're very aware of every dime that's going out right now, so they know what's going on, and they'll put a stop to it. You don't have to worry about that. What is that? Year 34, end of the second age. Gondor defeats Sauron, and the One Ring is clay. And this is the account of Isildur. Gondorade approves $50 billion to aid in orc resettlement and diversity education courses. Oh my heavens. I love it. Do you think she got USAID money? Yes, that lady definitely in Paris. She definitely got the USAID money. That's for sure. Mike, what do you think of Tom Massey's assertion that Congress will attempt to refund USAID through omnibus legislation? I mean, again, they could try. It's not going to happen. It's there's no USAID to fund. I mean, this is the thing that the industry is being completely gutted. So they could try, but I don't think Republicans are going to go with that. Again, Trump has too much political power right now. Rayval, now we're taking our nation back from these corrupt people. We got to do something for this nation. The steam locomotive 2100, the Reading, is being made into the second American freedom train. And then you have a question mark. I do not know, but that sounds great. That sounds awesome. Love it. Angela, Dr. C, 2 questions. Why did Senator Grassley allow cash vote to be postponed? Video confirms FBI agents J6. And where is Ray Epps? I'm with you. I don't know why he did that either. I don't know why he voted along with them. Maybe it was just, I don't know. I can't begin to explain. Ray Epps actually, unfortunately, got pardoned. Ray Epps got pardoned as part of that blanket pardon. That was the one thing. But he's just become a laughing stock, and everybody knows. Well, I'll just leave it at that. He's gone. We won't. He got his 15 minutes and he's gone. Cork, good morning, Dr. Steve. Happy Friday. Do you believe Trump should push for Ukraine to remember? Oh, we've already talked about that. Ryan, Dr. Steve, after everything coming out, do you really think the Dems will win the House? Oh, okay. Well, just because, we're talking literally a handful of seats, and I'm just going by the law of averages. But no, absolutely. We may end up holding on or even increasing our majority. I'm just going by the law of averages on that one, because we generally do, 9 times out of 10, the House flips, or at least the party that is out of power from the White House gains seats in the House. That's all. I don't think they have a chance in the Senate. William O'Toole, Dr. Steve, good Friday afternoon question. After exposing the outlandish monies going out the tap through USAID, what is the next move by Trump? That is, when he connects the money going to swamp politicians in both parties, who will help him in Congress to out the politicians and bring them to justice? Yeah, so this is going to be Pam Bondi. This is going to be Cash. They're going to be responsible for the retributive side of things. Ultimately, they're the enforcers. They're the Justice Department, the FBI as the chief investigative and law enforcement agency of the nation. They're ultimately responsible for that. Joan Hampton, Do you see the rise of Millet and Bukele has contributed to Trump's return via news of their actions on alternative news sources? And is triumphant is this triumphant energizing more democratic populism in North and South America? Yes, I do. I think they were both lights in the midst of the darkness. I think they were both spring tides of freedom in the midst of that winter of socialism and globalism. And I think the combination, that triumvirate, I love how you put it. I think, look, I mean, if it weren't for USAID, Jair Bolsonaro would have won re-election easily. They interfered. And it looks like, when is it? 2026, I think, is their next election. It looks like Lula is falling apart right now in Brazil. So if Bolsonaro can't run, perhaps Eduardo, his son, can run. But yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to see the President Gustavo Petro of Colombia's polling in the low 20s. I think we're going to see some pretty impressive stuff. Catherine, I think the nation is ill-informed about Medicare, Medicaid costs. Relatively little fraud by physicians, more like durable medical equipment, etc. I think reason costs in medical care have gone up faster than inflation is due to the size of the CMMS staff and the waste in paying their salaries, expenses, etc. Non-medical bureaucrats develop and enforce the outrageous demands of physicians and other healthcare professionals, such that more time is spent on documentation than care. Yeah, I'm sure there has to be a lot of there's going to have to be a lot of overhaul with Medicare. I could see that, but I don't know enough to comment. Vlad the Impaler, how soon do you foresee people from other countries wanting to take a look under the hood of the government's finance? Well, we've already talked about this, guys. L. Green, income tax, Rand Corps under Reagan found that not only penny of income tax went to pay any government agency, program, or salary, all went to interest on the debt. Oh my gosh, yeah, I could see that. Oh gosh, yeah, it's just so infuriating. And both the United States and Canada are facing very, very similar things here. Although the United States' debt is way has exploded beyond anything I think any nation has ever seen. Kevin, what do you think about President Trump leveraging the Epstein Diddy information to bring out more troublesome government figures into line? Yeah, I think I like that. I'd be amazed if most governors, senators, represent DAs haven't already been compromised with someone else to keep them in line. Yeah, I think so. Again, he's a master politician. All the political powers on his side right now. I can imagine Epstein and Diddy files would yield a treasure trove of shall we say political persuasion. Joan, how do we reach early vote action by snail mail? I don't mind donating, but want to send a check. I can't find an address for them. Absolutely no more through WinRed. Yeah, I don't know. They should have a contact information on their website. And Mike or Josh, if you can look that up, maybe while we're answering the other questions, I can give Joan an address from Early Vote Action on their website. Bert, hello, Dr. Steve. Speaking of taxes, what are your thoughts on the flat tax? Yeah, no, I don't mind. I like any tax. I don't mind any tax as long as it's just simply not weaponized, or it cannot be exploited and weaponized by the Democrats and their resentment politics. So that's what you get. Bernie Sanders has made a career out of the billionaires and the onesies. Of getting away with all these taxes. No, enough pitting one citizen against another citizen. Enough of this divide and conquer. I don't want that anymore. So yeah, so a flat tax would be like a 15% across the board, whatever, 10% across the board, doesn't matter, and it has to be levied equally to everyone. I'd be perfectly fine with that. Anthony, thanks for the show today. Thank you, Anthony. Very appreciated. Thank you for the gift. RT Core, Dr. Turley, in reference to my taxes. I never thought of it that way. Makes total sense. So thank you, RT Core. And again, very important, RT. I It's inevitable. You can't get away from it. Putin is paid in taxes, right? You can't get away. So the point is, we just want to make sure whoever is going to be fully on that kind of payroll is worth it, and people deserving of that. And you are most certainly deserving of that, not these whiny losers. So there you go. Absolutely, RT. Thank you. Let's see, Joan, to donate by mail, please mail checks payable to Early Vote Action, PAC, PAC, and it is 2465. That's 2465 Centerville Road. J as in John 17-714. J as in John 17 oh, there you go. Thanks, guys. 714 Herndon, Virginia 20171. So there you go. I know they will be very excited to receive any support you can send to them. And we did. They told us, Scott told us firsthand, that our audience helped win that election. So because of your donations to them. P. Stein, Dr. Steve, I believe you predicted in earlier videos the demise of the left by adoption of identity politics becoming a tribalist party resigned to the fringes. Yeah, inevitably the tribalism. I wish I could say it was specific to me. It's not. A number of scholars have said that the tribalization, that multiculturalism inevitably turns into tribalization. Tribalization ends up breaking off into its own sphere. Case in point, Dearborn, Michigan. It has the highest density of Muslim population in the country. If Hamtramck and Dearborn, I forget how they relate to each other. I think it was Hamtramck that has an all-Muslim city council. They were voted in by 70% Democrat support. They're all Democrats. And they did two things of note last year. Number one, they banned all pride flags from any public building in Hamtramck. And number two, they endorsed President Donald J. Trump. They completely abandoned the multicultural kind of pro-LGBT voting bloc that brought them into power. They recognized, wait a minute, we have a majority Muslim population. They're going to put us in here no matter what. We don't need these other multicultural people or identity politics people. And boom, they left them, because it only works as long as you're a victim. As long as you're a victim. The one thing that all of these diverse identity politics, what do you want to call them, demographics, have in common is victimhood. The moment you achieve political power, you're not a victim anymore. And now we don't have anything to do with each other. Catherine, do you have any news on whether George Soros' purchase of the 400 plus radio stations has been prevented? Now we have more fair FCC, I think, right? Maybe Soros could be stopped, as foreign monies cannot buy a certain amount of stations, I think. Yeah, well, Soros, unfortunately, is going to be domestic. I think he's an American citizen at this point, lives in New York. No, but I don't think you have to worry about it. FCC is already looking into Soros. But that was just a report this week. Steve, one concern I have about tariffs on China is that they pretty much own our prescription drug manufacturing. What contingency plan might Trump have to counter this concern? Great question. I don't know, Steve, but I think we learned the hard way during COVID that pharmaceutical industry is the actual manufacturing of our medicines is a national security issue. So I would hope he's bringing it all back home. Angela, is it unacceptable to have mass ATC shortages because you couldn't find enough blind, deaf, trans leprechauns? Oh, Angela, you just made my freaking weekend. That is hilarious. Oh, I think you know the answer to that. So funny. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, I'm noticing that young men are leaving these mega churches for the Orthodox churches. I've explained to some of these young men when reading their Bible that your job as a Christian is to focus on you being the best you can be and you being more Christ-like. I've explained to a few of the differences between guidance versus judgment. Can you help explain it more articulately? Guys, how many more questions do we have? I just need to time this out because I actually have a bit of a break here I have to go to. I actually have a little doctor's appointment I have to go to see how I did. One more, okay. Yeah, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, bottom line, you're putting it in the context of orthodoxy. Bottom line, I think young people are being attracted to tradition because we're going through this process known as re-traditionalization, whereas globalism starts shattering. More and more populations are reawakening their cultures, customs, and traditions as mechanisms of resistance against the residues of globalization, because globalism hates tradition, and it's contemporary fad on steroids. So they're finding that the modern evangelical church is just way too, it's too wishy-washy for them. It's too effeminate for them. It's too consumerist. And hence, therefore, kind of too globalist. And the exact opposite of that, of course, is orthodoxy. So, but absolutely. I mean, in the end, you have to follow how you feel like you're being led. I would say, it needs to be centered in the Great Nicene Creed, which affirms the Trinitarian nature of God, the eternal eternality of the three persons of the Trinity, the incarnation of the second person of the Trinity, Christ, and his salvation of our sins in his transformative death and resurrection. That's where it's centered. There is the Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church there, where it implies the sacramental aspect of the reawakening of a new creation, where the material world is revivified through the power of the Holy Spirit in Christ's resurrection. So, I mean, I just stay focused on that Nicene Creed, on the essentials of Christian faith, and find a great Christian fellowship. For me, obviously, it's orthodoxy. I just find orthodoxy to be the Christian faith in its ultimate expression, both in a contemporary sense, but also in terms of historically. And yeah, I would concur. Chip the Enlightened, do you think Trump will speak to the American people during the U.S. About the USAID mess? Good question. We'll have to see. Right now, it's on Elon's turf, but I think after everything has been uncovered, I think that will make for an amazing address to the nation. No question. Don't tread on me. Thank you for all that you do. It's very much appreciated. Thank God Donald Trump got in as president. I voted for him for a third time, and he won a third time, didn't he? Don't tread on me. God bless you, man. Again, donate by mail to that early vote action pack, and we're all set. All right, guys, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. If anything comes up, I'll make sure to do a quick little video to say hello. And until then, I'll see you on Monday. God bless, gang.